Well, hey there, Luskos. My name's Levi.
And I'm Jennie.
And we welcome you back to the podcast.
We sure do.
Hey, it's Luskos.
You are
We're so
welcome
glad you're
here today.
And we have a holiday-themed episode for your enjoyment today with Dallas and Amanda Jenkins, our good friends.
Yes.
We love the Jenkins family.
We love them so much. They're so special to us.
And they have, in addition to all the plates they are spinning and chainsaws they're juggling, this new Christmas movie that's out.
Yeah.
Which was so good.
It's incredible. And I just want to say, out the gate, you need to see it. You need to get your family. You need to get your friends, get your small group, tell everyone about it because it's so good.
Not only
and it's
is
in
it
theaters
something
still.
to support that's got a gospel message in it, but it's also just very funny.
It's so good.
Well done.
So funny.
Think of it this way. If you watch The Chosen and you're like, oh man, that's not a normal Bible Jesus show. This is that take, but a Christmas movie version.
Yeah.
It's like Christmas movie / Get Used to Different, you know?
We kind of talk about it a little bit in the episode, but we think that this will be one of the movies that you'll put in your watch every year.
In your VCR.
VCR.
You're going to put this in your VCR every year, and you're going to rewind it at the end. The best Christmas pageant ever.
Yeah.
It's out there. It's something you could bring friends to and make it a part of your holidays. And then, I think we're going to put it into the rhythm with all the other ones that you watch kind of every year.
Yeah, I think we're going to replace one of them with this.
Yeah, one of them's getting the axe. One of them's going.
Yes.
But before we get into that conversation, of course, Dallas and Amanda have created one of the best things ever in The Chosen, in a movie, an episodic television show about the life and story of Jesus that has caught the imagination of the world.
Yes, and in this episode, we also have some the announcements that have been made public, but we talk about kind of some of the new things coming up.
They've got a lot. They've got a new thing coming.
So much going on, and it's all really good.
A new thing coming. It's that Elevation Worship song.
Oh, yeah.
We also want to say, before we jump into this conversation, that we are so excited to mobilize our Hey It's the Luskos family, Luskos as we call you, if you're new to the podcast.
We lovingly call you.
By the way, thank you for those of you who like, who subscribe, who comment, who share. If you put these episodes that you enjoy up on social media, whether that's from the Access More platform or Spotify or YouTube. If you're just listening, you can watch video. We do have the video that's available. We also know that many of you listen to this working out, you drive in, commuting. It's very cool to hear the story. So we always love it when you share. Thank you for doing that.
Yes.
Tell friends about the episodes this is episode 186. So if you're just new to the party, there's so many in the vault you can listen to.
There are many.
Dallas and Amanda were on episode, let's see, we got
98.
Here, episode 98 and episode 56.
And he was only on 56.
Oh, Dallas only on 56.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about marriage in the 98 one.
Yeah.
And the 56 one was just all about The Chosen. That was a bell I rang. All about The Chosen. It was fantastic.
It's good timing.
But we also are trying to mobilize our podcast audience towards a goal and as well, all the different, social media, our email list. We're just trying to get everyone together to try and do something for good this year end.
Yeah.
We're, as a church, receiving a year-end offering that's going to fund grants to do work all around the world through outreach partners and soup kitchens, pregnancy centers. It's called the Good Roads Movement year-end offering at Fresh Life Church. We're personally participating in it above and beyond what we normally give to the Lord through the local church. And we're saying, even if you have a church you go to where you do your normal tithing, this is a chance to, above and beyond, do something. And specifically, what we want to point our Hey It's the Luskos family towards is helping us open up a prison inside a church inside a prison in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Yes. In a women's prison.
Yep. We already have a church that meets every week in a men's prison in Montana, but we don't have one in a women's prison. This one's going to be in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
The cost is $100,000, and that's ambitious, but we're excited with all those who receive our email lists that we send out, our brass tacks and life hacks.
Yeah.
And you can join that, by the way, at levilusko.com.
Yep.
But we also are using the podcast platform to say, hey, if you listen to this and enjoy it, help us do something good. In the conversation, Dallas talks about how The Chosen has made a big impact in prisons around the country.
Huge, yeah.
And we know that the incarcerated population is one of the greatest mission fields we have in this country to reach.
Yeah.
And we want to do that, and you can help us to do that. So there's a link in the show notes and in the YouTube description, podcast description, where you can click more to click the link that will help you give a tax-deductible year-end gift that will help make this a reality. And you can do that today, even if it's a small gift in what you would consider small, or what someone else would, is not the point. The big point, I think, with giving is that it's a sacrifice to us.
Yeah, and what God might be leading you to. And I think that this is such a huge and sweet thing as it's the Luskos family to get to go in on something together. Like, I love that unifying thought.
Yeah, like when you want to buy a gift for somebody, you say, hey, let's just go in together on that. I think
Venmo
this is a chance for us to say,
$10.
I think you listen to us because you trust us and like us, and we like you too, just FYI. But the chance to bless you and encourage you, this is a chance for us to say, hey, what if we went in together? And what if we were able to buy a prison church for women to every year, week in and week out, receive Jesus, come to know him, and we'll be able to all say, like, hey man, we did that. God did that through us, but we did that.
We did it together.
What a wonderful thought.
Yes,
it'll mean something. So that's there. Pray about it year end, and all of us are hopefully asking the question: how can we at year end do things and think about things that would light up the heart of Jesus, who's the birthday boy?
Yeah.
And just like the wise men brought a sacrificial gift to Jesus, I think ending the year with a sacrificial gift to Jesus makes all the sense in the world.
Makes so much sense. Okay,
well, without further ado, please do enjoy this conversation with our friends Dallas and Amanda Jenkins. All right, well, Dallas and Amanda Jenkins, thank you for coming back. I mean, this is three-peat for you guys. This is number 3 on Hey, It's Luskos. So at this point, we're just like family here. And thanks for coming on today.
Absolutely.
This
is where we get our quality time with y'all.
So this is how the 4 of us get together and we just force the world to pay attention.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is our double date, and anybody that's along for the ride is just is a collateral damage at this point. That's amazing. Or maybe it's therapy. I don't know. One of the two.
Yes.
Both.
Yes,
both
for sure.
All things to all people.
But we love you two very much and are really grateful to get to have more conversation with you today.
Yeah, we love you guys so much.
Well, I've said this to you before, Levi. What we do, Amanda and I, we always say is not the end game, the movies and the books and whatnot. What you do is the end game. Ultimately the end game is heaven, where we're not going to be watching movies or TV shows or having pastors speak. But
that we know of.
Yeah.
The lead up to that is, we're trying to gather, we're trying to kind of help impact or change the cultural conversation. But ultimately, discipleship is where growth happens. And sometimes it's discipleship as a result of some of the things we do, which we're thrilled with. But this is a partnership. And so anytime we're talking about a project like the best Christmas pageant ever or The Chosen or whatever with you guys or people like yourselves, it's always as a encouragement of, hey, this is one step, but now we hand the baton off. Anyone who came into the gate through this, we hand the baton off to you.
Go find a good church now.
You guys are local church people through and through, and just about it, and about discipleship and formation, and it's incredible. That's always been your heart, and I love that. That's not like, hey, come see the show, come watch this movie. It's like you want that to be a gateway. You want that to be an introduction, a handshake into next steps that people are going to take. And that just comes through at every level. It comes through at the Chosen devotionals. It comes through at the Chosen Con where your heart is to have Bible study and dig deeper in. And that just, it exudes from you guys. And that's, I think, incredible to us all.
Yeah, it really is.
I don't know if everyone knows that when we've done 2 Chosen Cons so far. The first one was 3,000 people. The second one was 5,500. And they all gather. And I'm fairly certain that we're probably the only fan convention that has a pastor come and speak. And that pastor both times has been Levi Lusko and will, as long as he allows it, will be there for future Chosen Cons because we always have a pastor and a worship leader for one session for everybody, and that is illustrating in real time what our heart ultimately is for that.
But also, funny behind the scenes story. So we get multiple schedules for Chosen Con. We get the master schedule, and then we get our own schedule, and then maybe we get a third schedule of some crossover. So I was kind of looking at all the schedules, but I was really focused on mine and where I had to be and next. And for some reason, I had it in my head that you were an evening session. I don't know why, but you were morning. And so I thought I had a little bit extra time on the morning where you were talking. So I was like, oh, nice. I get this little extra time. So I'm in my hotel room and I'm sipping my coffee and whatever. And my friend who did the weekend with me calls and she's like, I'm so sorry, but it's now. This because I
because you weren't part of that. You weren't part of that session, so it wasn't on
session,
your
so
schedule.
Got it.
And I knew because I had been saying I cannot wait to hear Phil Wickham lead worship,
which was incredible, by the way.
So
I think you guys have
amazing.
called him the worship leader of The Chosen. He's been a part of it for so long. Yeah.
I love
yeah.
it.
And then to hear you speak. And so I have never gotten ready so fast in my life. I became a crazy person in my hotel room, a total flurry. And I knew I had the whole day after that. I was scheduled out. I was in front of people. I was like, I don't even care. I don't even care that my mascara isn't on. I don't even care. And I raced in, and it was the fastest I've ever sat in a seat and like had a heart posture.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny.
Whiplash. That's so whiplash.
Yeah,
Okay, first of all, you had to run through the largest hotel in the world. That Marriott is bonkers.
I was sweating.
Yeah. She comes in. I'm sitting there. I'm already my relationship with the Lord is
Your
already.
heart was prepared.
Yeah. And she just comes rushing in. Yeah. But again, it's we not only do we want our people fed at weekends like that, more than just show promotion and celebration of the show, but we want to be fed ourselves, and so we're the ones. They're, also in the front row,
we choose the people
taking notes. Because again, on the weekend like that, and I don't think this is at all arrogant to say this. We're constantly pouring out and feeding. I think our people because
you're meeting.
They're there for us to meet them and to kind of share new things about the show. And so to even in the midst of that weekend have a moment where we can be fed has been a big blessing that you guys have been a huge part of. So
well, I get that. And I think through that way too. Like when I bring a guest speaker in, I'm like selfish to not be preaching, get to sit and listen. So I understand that reversal.
Right.
But I also want to say what an easy honor it is to preach with that teeing it up.
Yeah.
Looking at the shows and then writing a Bible study is a dream. I mean, I've harassed you personally, like, man, I want you to get to all these different stories because I want to preach them. And it's so fun to preach a text that you've covered.
Yes.
Because you are creating a commentary you can step into.
Beautiful.
In the sense of seeing the text. And I know you guys agonize to make it with fidelity to scripture and all of that. So it literally is like stepping into a commentary that you can walk around in an AI or VR and see and feel and touch and smell. And then
that's amazing.
To have done
Well
the feeding
said.
of the 5,000 or to have done the man healed at the pool of Bethesda, having had you already do it. And this time, of course, I did the Mary's moment of pouring the spikenard out. But so what an easy honor it is to come and your people are Bible fans, literally in many cases dressed up as Bible characters. It's like Hallelujah Night on steroids.
Yeah. Well, we can't spoil anything, but there was a moment on that weekend. I think you guys probably were gone by that point, but where we had one of our actors come out and it was a surprise and the place went crazy. And I'm like, there's a Bible character that's getting that's getting like what you'd see at a normal like Comic-Con or a nerd convention or whatever, that they're reacting like crazy to a Bible character is one of the, like, as a fan of pop culture and movies and TV, to see that happen is so cool.
Yeah.
But you mentioned, you used a great term, commentary.
Yeah.
I think one of the greatest Bible commentaries ever written was the John MacArthur Bible study. And what's ironic about it is he's not a big fan of The Chosen. He's stated so publicly.
Man.
Because he just, he hasn't even watched it. He's always saying, you got to just the Bible, just stick to the word. And
unless it's a John MacArthur study Bible,
Well, that's what's so funny. That's
sermon.
That's what's so funny. I say this as someone who has studied under John MacArthur and has learned from John MacArthur, so I'm not criticizing. But his study Bible does what The Chosen does, which is there's the Bible, and then inside the actual, not the Bible, but as part of when you purchase a John MacArthur study Bible, it's not just the words of scripture. He's got all his commentary in there, and it's oftentimes saying the equivalent of, all right, let me set the stage for you. This is what was going on at this time. This is what they would have been thinking. This is why this would have taken place, because the stories of Scripture are some of the most famous stories that we know of and have taken as canon in our lives, are like 3 verses long.
Yeah.
4 verses long. And so he says, here's why this would have been so impactful. And that's exactly what we're trying to do.
It's a just so you know. And let's back up and
context.
And really, to even take it a step further, all Bible translation is in essence an act of commentary. So when we take the original text, the Greek or Hebrew, that's that Bible. Any act of bringing it into another language does have to, by necessity, become some version of commentary, especially when you're doing a paraphrase. And I've said on record before, and I think posterity will show, you have done for the visual dimension and hearing dimension what Eugene Peterson did in giving us the Message translation.
Amen.
To where from the Amplified or ESV or whatever, we would go to the Message and go, oh, wow, I didn't realize that before, because it's a paraphrase commentary essentially. And I think you've given us a version we can watch that does the exact same thing.
Yeah, and we also, I think with the Message, I haven't spoken to Eugene about this, but whenever, like we recently released, The Chosen released like a blended harmony of the Gospels, where we take the 4 Gospels and you make them a little more story cohesive, not biblically cohesive, but just story wise. And people are always a little bit uncomfortable with that, which makes sense. But we always say in it, even as the intro, this is a tool to help you understand a little bit better. Ultimately, we want you to read the word in its as original of its intention as possible, which you, again, unless you speak Greek or Hebrew, you can't.
Right.
But I think what we forget about is even the existence of the Bible is in and of itself a commentary. There was a group of people in the 300s or 400s, I don't remember which, the Council of Hippo, where they were choosing the books to include. Now, I believe they were divinely inspired, but they were choosing the books to include, and by leaving certain ones out that were in consideration, they were in fact, I believe, and Levi, you can correct me, but I believe that God was inspiring them even in the choosing of which books to collect into canon, because there were other books that we don't read that were written just as hopefully as some of the books that are in the Bible to be taken seriously, and some of them or all of them that didn't make it in didn't qualify. They weren't. They didn't, whether they didn't fit or qualify historically or accurately, but also didn't fit into what we believe God was inspiring the word. So all of this ultimately is to point to what God was saying to his people through his word. And so we know the difference between our TV show and the actual word of God.
Of course.
And we want, and we believe, and we know, in fact, 99.99999% of viewers who watch the show know the difference between the TV show and the Bible. And when they don't, they look it up, they check it out.
Yeah.
And we are always pushing them towards their local pastor or towards historical context, of course.
Yeah.
So it's just important, I think, to always ground any discussions we have about it with that, so that anyone who's listening right now knows that even if they disagree with us on some things, that our heart is for ultimately the spotlight on and the glorification of God's word.
Yes, so beautiful.
And that comes clear so emphatically. I have more questions about that, but let us start where we're at right now, and that is this new movie you guys made, which is the best Christmas pageant ever. At the moment we're having this conversation, it's been in theaters. We had opening weekend, which was colossal. People are listening to this podcast on December 11th or following, so it's still in theaters in the holiday run.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Of course, we're going like that, but we're speaking that in faith that it's smashing records and all the things.
Yes.
Congratulations, first of all, on this movie. And how are you feeling right now? I mean, you guys probably got to be a little bit whiplash and jet lag and all the things.
Well, it's a little surreal, and I'll talk about why when you think it's appropriate today about the history of how we got this project. But we've been chasing it for so long and have been passionate about it for so long. And God's story of how we ultimately got it and how we ultimately got to this point has been so beautiful, painful at times, but then ultimately beautiful, that by the time it was actually released, Amanda and I are, of course, we have a day job, with The Chosen. And so this is on top of all that. And by the time it was finally released, and then its opening weekend was so strong and unexpectedly and surprisingly successful, and the critic reviews, which were the biggest shock of all of this. The New York Times gave us a positive review for a PG-rated Christmas movie, family movie that's ultimately about the true story of Jesus's birth.
Wow.
Was like, it's been a surreal ride, and we're really, really humbled and grateful for it. But at the moment that someone's listening right now, of course, it may have crashed and burned by now.
No.
So,
I think
it's
what we felt and
incredible.
I think we've heard people saying in our community and those who we posted about it in comments, this is to us a Christmas classic, an instant Christmas. And I think we're all looking for those movies every year to watch. We watched, I'm just going to do it. We watched a movie that's, kind of one of our, we watch it every year, but I think every one of us at the end of it, we're like, it's probably the last time we watched that. It was the Arnold Schwarzenegger Jingle All the Way. And it's fine. It's cute.
Our oldest
Sinbad.
our oldest is at college. And so she's like, if you're going to watch any Christmas movies without me, can you watch that one?
She goes, I don't want to be there. I don't mind. But I love the thought of Christmas in memorial going forward, that after we've watched Elf and Home Alone, to pull out this one, because not only does it have all the same feel good, but it's got the proper message. It takes us to where we want to go, which is to Jesus and the impact of the gospel originally and what it's meant to have now. So congratulations. It is really funny. We went and saw it. We took a bunch of friends and got to see it on the big screen, which is how I encourage everybody to go see it. Don't wait for it to come out on a screen or on a net streaming platform. Go see it in the theater, get the popcorn, do the thing, because it is a fantastic Christmas story.
Put the Milk Duds in the popcorn.
Yeah, that's our go-to. We put the Milk Duds in the popcorn and mix it all up. Let's get melty,
Wow.
Yeah, I
can't even imagine the mess that is.
Yeah, I can't.
I do love that you love it.
Yeah, I can't advocate for that.
You.
Yeah. We're happy that you guys do that.
You're too healthy eating. What's your go-to theater snack? And probably like what? Keto balls or what?
Yeah. I don't eat out at the theater.
A bottle of water.
A can of sardines. He just eats in there.
Yeah. Well, we have rules about that. Like,
so I'm actually
not allowed in the house.
I'm actually So the sardines, I'm not actually allowed to eat in the house. I have to like I'm a smoker. I have to go out to the garage. Because she won't let me bring the smell in.
It enrages me. The smell of sardines enrages me.
But they're so good for you.
They're extraordinarily healthy.
Wow.
And they're really good on the planet. They're one of those fish that it's not like ahi or mahi, where like fishing them is like depleting the populations of them. Supposedly everyone could turn to like anchovies and sardines, and literally it is a perpetually replenishing fish or something like that.
I don't care.
She doesn't care. She's enraged.
Same.
Amanda said she's enraged by them.
Amanda, I'm with you.
It's a hairy fish. It's bad news.
Yeah. She's probably like, and I'm sure there's uses of tobacco that people could celebrate, but that doesn't mean she wants anyone to smoke it around her.
I can't.
Well, I also have strict rules about the theater, because what maybe a listener might not know is that movie theaters actually make the majority of their money on sales of their concessions. And so as a filmmaker who wants theaters to be successful, I don't allow our family to sneak in.
It's a total killjoy.
Yeah, you are not allowed to sneak in food into the theater.
You can't bring your food, and when we had no money, that meant no treats. So he was a stickler about it. Killjoy.
Yeah. So, but also I am health conscious, so I don't actually eat stuff at the theater. In my olden days, I ate Twizzlers. That was my go-to.
Because there isn't really anything for someone who's like conscious with their health. There isn't really anything, like even the popcorn. Like
you could buy a pickle. I would probably be the healthiest thing you could get at the theater, right?
A hot dog with no bun.
A hot dog with no bun. I've done that on a carnivore.
On the verge. Yeah.
Yeah, but even that, it's like sitting in water, man.
Oh, no, it's
it's bad news.
I just got a little gaggy when you said that.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, when I am cheating, when I'm not actually on the wagon and we go to a movie theater, then there's no rules, and I can go crazy.
Okay, so what would be your go-to if you're going crazy? What's Dallas Jenkins Gone Wild?
Yeah, Twizzlers and M&Ms.
Okay,
for sure. Yeah.
And everyone else's food.
He'll just reach over and go for it.
Yeah.
Whatever anyone else has looks, I think, the best to him. Typically, my kids eat like slightly like shielding their things. Yeah. He's like, I call him Alpha Wolf. Like he just.
No, it's for sure a problem for everyone else but me. So
they're happy when you're like on the wagon.
They
Yes, yes.
are like, okay, Dad's not touching. He's
As
not
soon as
touching
they see me
anything.
with some M&Ms, they're like,
Oh, shit.
our food's in jeopardy. But yeah, no, but we do encourage people to see it in the theater because it is, even if you don't eat like me and you do want to enjoy the food, because this is, the movie is intended to be a nostalgic experience. And I think part of that is in community. And as you know, as you guys know, the movie is about community and the power of community.
Yeah.
And ultimately with God at the center. So we have been thrilled to see families going to see it. And I think this is also one of those unique films that, and I say this because the book impacted Amanda and me so much as adults, where as adults, you can bring your kids to this movie and you're not making a sacrifice. You're not doing it just for them. There are some kids' movies that you take your kids to and you're like, this is going to be a chance for a nap. This is going to be a chance to catch up on whatever, I'll hide my cell phone under my jacket and kind of get caught up on things. But this is actually like the book, the story is so witty and so charming. And then we intentionally, in the filmmaking of it, tried to capture a timelessness. Like you don't know what decade this is set in.
Right.
It just feels true. It feels nostalgic. It feels, there's always, we've heard from so many people, adults and kids, who've said, the house, the church, the town,
the wardrobe,
the car that they drove evoked a memory, evoked a feeling of Christmas that I think makes the ultimate message of the movie feel even more true and authentic.
Yeah, because it's not
Absolutely.
quite the 50s, but it's not current. There is an ambiguousness to like when it's set that feels like you said. It felt like if I had to guess, I would be like it's probably like late 80s, early 90s is the cars and stuff like that. But like you said, you can't really place it.
Yeah.
No, and we really did grab from each decade on purpose. So as soon as you think it's from the 70s, you'll see something that's a little bit more 80s or 90s. As soon as you see some 80s or 90s, you'll see some 70s. So we intentionally, my production designer, Jean, who's a genius, he came up with the word then. He just said, you don't know when, but it just feels like then. It feels like your childhood. It feels like last year. It feels like a memory. And I want you to feel that 30 years from now.
But it's not current. Whatever it is,
That's
there's not a
incredible.
Tesla Cybertruck driving down the road.
Correct.
Or cell phones, right? Like that was super sweet. And we even had some younger kids commenting on how they loved not seeing any cell phones and how the phones were in the wall, the cord was in the wall and how that just felt like community. And it felt this like probably nostalgia for them. But yeah, it was noticed, it's a really sweet thing.
So sweet. Yeah, you feel that. It's so good. So what was that? So you said you worked with Jean with design and all that stuff. What was that like trying to figure that out? Because obviously the book that you guys were reading to your kids, and this is what sparked all this. What was that like trying to figure out what that design and everything would be for this?
Because does the
film?
book date it, or is the book similarly kind of ambiguous as to when it takes place?
Yeah, the book is ambiguous. It was written in 1972. And so the thing that marks that time period most is the approach, the child who's narrating it. When she says the Herdmans were the worst kids in the history of the world. So the book is about this church that's putting on this big town Christmas pageant, and it's the same every year and it's traditional. And there's this family of 6 kids from the wrong side of the tracks who are the worst kids in the history of the world. And when she's identifying what makes them the worst, she's saying they lied, they cheated, they bullied, they smoked cigars, even the girls. They took the Lord's name in vain. She's not saying the kinds of things that you would say today to define the worst kids in the history of the world.
Right.
Now you'd be like, they, sliced their teacher.
They vape.
Yeah. So it's some of the innocence of the story certainly evokes a time period that's from the past.
Simpler days.
And the community itself, there in the book, she talks about the Ladies' Aid and the potluck committee and things that we don't actually even necessarily know what those are. We kept those things in.
Yeah.
And I think that's too what causes it to feel so like then it's, because we don't really have potlucks anymore, or the Ladies' Aid or things, or we feel offended by that or something. I don't know, but it's all that,
But in the first page of the script, before I started with the dialogue and all that, I wrote a note to whoever was reading it. And that included our creative team. It included actors who were considering the roles. And it just kind of described what the movie was going to feel like. And I talked about, the movie Babe, which is one of my favorite family movies ever, that felt timeless. I talked about movies like Paddington 2, which is another brilliant film.
Yeah.
I talked about A Christmas Story, and I talked about Wes Anderson, who's a filmmaker, not family-friendly necessarily, although he did Fantastic Mr. Fox, which was great, but his visual style. And then I said, ultimately, we serve at the altar of Norman Rockwell. Now, I don't mean that literally, but visually speaking,
Right.
Each of the scenes in the movie, obviously, it's like a moving Norman Rockwell painting. And so I was describing that visual and that tone so that all of our creative department heads, like our production designer, our costumer, our cinematographer, were all on the same page. And when we got together, we talked about what we're talking about now. And we talked about that feeling of nostalgia and timelessness and the colors. We were very intentional about all of that. And so all of that, though, was meant to serve the story. It's not just an interesting visual project. It really is meant to take you on a journey towards seeing the birth of Christ through this Christmas pageant, through the eyes of these troubled kids in poverty. Everything was designed to serve that. We wanted it to feel nostalgic and authentic, even though it's a bit of a hyper reality because it's through the eyes of an adult looking back on her childhood memory, similar to A Christmas Story, where everything's a little bit slightly exaggerated. There's like a slight 10% hyper reality, but we wanted to make sure that when the emotional and spiritual gut punch happens, that it does feel authentic and it actually moves you. And that's why we've been so pleased to see people coming out of the theaters, wiping their tears and talking about how they wanted to be better. They wanted to do better. They wanted to be the hands and feet of Jesus.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I do want to take you back and, like I said, talk about the journey of reading it as a child, reading it to your children through your family history, and then going that story. But first, you said you have a heartbeat for kids to see it. So I asked my kids, I said, hey, we're interviewing the Jenkins. They loved going. We brought, like I said, our kids, and then we brought some friends of ours, children as well. We wanted to see little ones, including my assistant's daughter, first movie she's ever seen in the movie theater in her life. And she was captivated. I mean, just came out glowing. Even when she had to go to the bathroom and they had to rush off, she was hesitant to leave. So she even held onto the seat, had to be dragged out of there before she wet her pants.
Cute.
And then my son gave it a 10 out of 10, which is high praise, by the way. But they each asked questions. So Lennox wants to know, what season did you film it in? And was the snow real, or did you have to make fake snow? Was it filmed in wintertime or was it filmed in summertime?
It was filmed in wintertime in Winnipeg, Canada. It was
very, very
absolutely
winter.
Freezing. But there were some fake snow as well. So some of the snow was real. And then occasionally, because in Canada, the snow dries pretty quickly in certain parts. And so we had to do some fake snow for a few scenes, and sometimes you get some snow, but it's not quite enough. We really wanted it to feel winter, and we wanted it to again evoke that memory. And so your childhood memories sometimes have that kind of gray snow, where you can kind of picture you're driving down the street and it's got that grayish quality to it that we did in some of the scenes. But then there's other times where it's that beautiful winter white wonderland, and so we did both, and sometimes we needed some fake snow to do that.
Okay, because there's definitely some snow globe Rockwell moments to it, like some cutaway shots, and where it's a little bit there was even one shot where I was like, is that even real? It's so pretty. Is that even real? There was a main street kind of, you saw the city off on the right, and it was it was like the idealized wintertime memory.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Clover's question was, what was your favorite scene to shoot, or one of your favorite scenes to shoot?
Well, you came out for this one.
Yeah, I came out for the biggie.
Yeah, the scene that made us desperate to do this movie is when they finally do put on the Christmas pageant. So I won't spoil it, but it's called The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. So it's,
it's coming.
Yeah. And so when we got to the point where we filmed the Christmas pageant, very challenging. It took us an entire week, very logistically challenging. But then there's a moment in the pageant where heaven meets earth, and you see truly, all of the characters experience the Christmas story for, in many ways, the first time. And we scheduled it knowing that Amanda had to be there, because even the decision to shoot it in Canada was a challenging one because
a painful one.
Yeah, because we do The Chosen, and that's a full-time job, and we are already a little bit past the comfort level of how much time it takes away from the family.
Right.
It's not egregious, but it's certainly at the edge of the envelope, if not over the envelope. And so adding a movie on top of that would take me away from Texas was not something that we did lightly. And this is the only movie that we would have done that for. And so Amanda, though, obviously being home with our son who's still in high school, didn't want to leave either, but said, I have to be there for this scene and the filming of this scene. And so that moment might not have been the easiest to film, but was certainly a surreal moment going, this thing that we have planned for almost 20 years,
Gosh.
that moved us and changed us so significantly. And to see the young actress act in such a beautiful way, and those were real tears that you saw, to see all of the department heads knowing how much this meant to us, and they really upped their game to really nail that scene. That was a beautiful moment for sure.
You just felt
Incredible.
that. And I love knowing that. Like I loved, at the Chosen Con when you announced this, and you just kept announcing all these things. I won't say any of them because they're secrets, but it was just like, oh my gosh, that, and then you just announced the next thing, and then this, and then it was just like such a beautiful surprise party for everybody. But but I loved hearing the behind the scenes of this and the history and the backstory, and even going into seeing the movie, like it almost was just like, okay, I have that foundation, and now like I'm so excited just to let all this wash over me and sink into me. And I'm so excited for our listeners to to get that feel and to before they go see the movie too. But you guys, you just feel everything that you were so intentional to pour into this, you feel it all. And thank you. It's beautiful.
Okay, Daisy's question is, who is the funniest actor on set?
Oh,
gosh.
Well, that's an easy two-way, two-part answer. I mean, Judy Greer, who plays the mom, and Pete Holmes, who plays the dad, are legitimately two of the funniest people we have ever met in our lives.
And people know Judy from Ant-Man, where she's Scott's ex-wife.
Yes. And Arrested Development, and
13 going on 30.
Yes.
Yeah, some of her big ones.
So she's always been a more comedic actress, but we didn't know her personally. And everyone loves Judy Greer. Everyone, I mean, if you don't recognize the name, you just look at her. You look up her picture. You'd be like, oh yeah, I love her.
Yeah.
And one of
those many
the
things,
100 movies she's done, and she is just transcendently funny and so fast.
You can't believe it. Like sometimes she's so funny, I don't even laugh. Where I'm like, I'm in appreciation of this moment. But then
Pete Holmes, who is
a stand-up comic.
He's a stand-up comic. He does a lot of comedy, and his stand-up isn't necessarily for everyone. I mean, every stand-up has their own style, but just regardless of what you think of his on-stage performances, just in real life, he is so fast and so funny.
As humans. So when they're in a scene together.
Oh my gosh.
It is in Canada. It was beyond cold. It's to the point where like I needed to go to the trailer to save myself, but I couldn't be pulled away from watching. So I had the headphones and I was watching, and it wasn't necessarily the scenes. It was their in between banter.
Well, because you have your earphones, so you can hear the audio even between takes.
Oh yeah.
Listening to them was like performance art in between the takes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they were so funny. And then just because it's fun, the kids all had these great personalities, but just to be answering a younger person, the funniest kid was the kid who played Charlie, who never ever stopped. His name is Sebastian, and he just never stopped being himself. And most of the time, it was funny.
Yeah, there's I think if you went to the Smithsonian, you were seeing displays of great ADHD throughout history. Sebastian,
from all of them,
Sebastian would be. There were several of them on this movie, but Sebastian would be kind of the Moses leading the ADHD family into the promised land. He was something else.
So smart, so
but Judy and Pete will be the first to say that they were more out of line I had to corral them more
They
than
were
even
naughty.
They were harder to direct than the children?
Yes. Yeah, for
Wow.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, that leads me to a question that's not on my list is what about when are we going to see some of this? Is there going to be extended, deleted scenes? Is there going to be some sort of version where we can
BTS.
kind of get some of those best of those moments at some point?
Yeah, there's a blooper reel that'll be on the DVD and it'll eventually be on
That's
social
so-
media, probably.
That's appropriate. I mean,
Yeah,
like,
no, we had to do some
You have to
editing.
work your way through it creatively.
Yeah, there was a swear jar that but one day into it we were like, donate $1,000 to the Salvation Army and that'll cover the swear jar.
and look, open your eyes. There are children.
Yeah.
There's angels, there's baby Jesus.
Oh my God.
Precious children.
No, but there's a good blooper reel and outtakes and all that kind of stuff that'll be on the DVD and on social
Amazing.
media, I'm sure.
Okay.
eventually.
Now do take us back and tell us, I had never heard of this book. I don't know how I missed that party, but I mean, you said you guys, your whole family, this was part of your Advent season every year, right?
Yeah, why don't you start and then I'll pick it up where I come in.
Yeah, I mean, when we had littles, all of our kids are kind of young adults, but when they were little, I would go to Pottery Barn Kids to play. I'd never intended to purchase.
We didn't have the
That
money
was
to purchase
not
anything.
in our budget, so we would just go play.
Love it.
And then they had this book on the counter, like a $3 kind of grab bag kind of thing. And I had read it in elementary school, in public school growing up, and I remember loving it. And so I grabbed it and brought it home to him and basically informed him he was going to be reading it out loud each night to the kids. And he did it. It's so funny. He remembered it too, but he did it so poorly.
Yeah, well, she hands the book to me to read. And again, here's what's one of the reasons why what happened that I'm about to share with you happened is because we'd read it in public school. And the fact, Levi, that you hadn't heard of the book is part of also what made this experience reading it so powerful, is that because we'd read it in public school, it was part of like the scholastic, you know how when you were a kid, you get those things, the book order forms, and sometimes, and we've heard from multiple public school teachers who read it to their schools every year.
Which is crazy that I missed it, because I feel like that was like where I shone as a reading.
Same.
I was not good at athletics, but I read everything, so I was mystified.
And a lot of homeschool parents will tell us that their kids read this. It's part of the curriculum. And so there was also a TV movie in the early 80s that I'd seen as a kid too, that I didn't remember much of.
And it's been done as plays in
Yeah,
school.
it's been performed as a play all over the world.
Yeah.
So I'm reading the first couple chapters and I'm like, man, this is so funny and so witty. And I'm sure you guys experience that too, like in the narration, a lot of which comes from the book. It's like, this is not just a little kids thing. This is adults
Really smart.
get these jokes. This is a funny, witty, sharp story. And early on, Levi, and I think you'll appreciate this, well, I know you will, is in the second chapter, this was the first clue of the experience we were going to have, which is Beth is the main little girl who is kind of the victim of the herdmans. And she's talking to the main herdman after they're at church for the first time. So the herdman's heard that there's going to be snacks at church.
Which
so
is such a wonderful scene.
I know.
This'll work. She sees the food drive.
Yeah,
This'll work.
The food drive.
Yeah, she'd heard that there were snacks. They show up and it happens to be the food drive. So it's just filled with food. And she's like, oh, this is gonna nice. She goes, we can work with this.
Yeah, that's what she says.
So they go to Sunday school and they don't pray. They don't sing Jesus Loves Me because they don't know anything. They're in church for the first time. And so there's a nice, interesting kind of just for us, those of us churchgoers, kind of a subplot of what is it like for kids, especially coming to church for the first time.
Totally.
And then at one point they announced the Christmas pageant and the opportunity to audition for these roles. And Imogene is asking Beth, what is this? And she goes, what's a pageant? And she says, well, it's a play. She goes, well, what's it about? And the girl says, it's about Jesus. And Imogene says, everything here is. And that phrase, I started crying. And I'm like, what a beautiful thing to be at church where when a visitor comes, they say, oh, everything here is about Jesus.
And what an indictment if that's not true.
Right. So I'm instantly like, I didn't expect to read that in a little kid's Christmas book. And so all of a sudden we're moved. And I'm like, man, how great would it be on your tombstone? Here lies Levi Lusko or Dallas Jenkins or whoever. Everything was about Jesus, right?
Ooh, wow.
So then we get to the final scene after everything has gone wrong and everything's been a disaster, and the church doesn't even want them around because they're going to ruin this precious, perfect, sacred pageant that they've been doing the same way for decades. And they finally perform the pageant, and it's through the eyes of these. Oh, I'm going to get emotional now because we never talk about this without crying.
It's 20 years. We still can't do it.
When we get to that moment where they're performing it, and where they, there's so many moments in it that are so beautiful, because these kids they're just trying to do a good job and portray the story as authentically as they see it.
As they're seeing it.
And without spoiling it, because they see it as a way out, maybe they could become famous and get out of this crappy life that they're living, which is so hard and horrible.
Well, yeah, and not even about being famous, just being someone else, portraying a different character.
And then connecting with the characters inside of the story of Jesus's birth in a way that you wouldn't necessarily if everything in your life was going well. I mean, they were connecting with Jesus and Mary and Joseph as outcasts. Yeah. They were connecting with the poverty. So they connected to the story out of their need.
Because of their unique life experience, the parts of the story that we take for granted, that resonated with them more. So when they're going like, what in the world, gold, frankincense, and myrrh, why would you give that? What baby wants gold, frankincense, and myrrh, right? And so they replace that with something that's more
precious to them. It costs them something. They're spikenard. Yeah, heck yeah.
Yes, exactly. So those things we're just crying, and
they want Herod to get hung.
And the reason that I'm saying he did it so poorly is because as we're reading this, he's crying so much that he's can't read. And the kids are, confused. And I'm like, oh, give me the book. I will try, and then I would read, and then I would cry and have to pass it back. So the Christmas tradition of this book is that we literally pass the book when we can't talk anymore for tears. And at one point our oldest was like, oh, I'll do it, So it's a funny pass the book experience in our house.
That's so beautiful.
I finished reading the book, and I say, I have to make this movie. Like, where has this been? This story needs to be a movie.
Yes.
Because how is this so Jesus-y and yet read in public schools and popular in the mainstream? And the Christmas of it and the humor of it is what allows us to get away with being so Jesus-y. And so I'm like, this is my movie. It's about kids. It's about troubled kids. As you guys know, we're adoptive parents. Our extended family are adoptive. We have adoption in our family as well of troubled kids. The Christmas of it all, I'm a huge, huge Christmas guy. The humor mixed with the emotion, the dramedy of it is my wheelhouse. It's probably what I'm better at than anything else. And so I Google, best Christmas pageant ever movie, who has the rights? And I found that there was kind of an announcement about one of the studios having the rights to it. And so I ended up finding that there's these three guys who got the rights to the book from the author, and who ended up. So I reach out to them, and in fact, one of them I have a mutual friend. So I am just selling them on me. I'm like, I've read it, I wept. By that point in my life, I'd done a couple of movies, some with varying degrees of success, but I wasn't really anybody of note. And so I'm like pitching them on why I was born to make this movie. And they're like, oh, that's really heartwarming. That's really lovely. But, we're going with a real studio and a real director. And so what I did was two things. One, I resolved to check in every year. And two, I put a reminder in my phone and in my computer with 3 words, come up once a week. It just simply said, pray for pageant. So once a week, it would pop up on my phone or computer. And I would be reminded to just pray that God would, and I would love to say, Levi, that as a good Christian, I prayed for God's will to be done and that I would be able to rejoice no matter what it was. But I was praying for God to protect anyone else from making it. And just, so I was not doing a fully holy, selfless prayer. But it was one of those things where, how sometimes you don't know really whether it's a calling or a dream or a desire. Time usually tells that, or the guidance of a pastor or God's word. When we hear something or feel something strongly that we want or that we feel called to, sometimes you need to give it a little time to see if it's really from God or if it's just something you're passionate about because you like it. Well, this just never left me, and so every week I would just pray for it, and every year I'd check in, and every year it was, they still want to do it, the studio, and the studio's going to renew the rights. So fast forward to 5 years ago, they get the rights back. The studio never could get it made. And they're like, we're going to take the rights back. And so I'm like begging with them, like, now's the time, guys. I'm the guy. And so for a couple weeks, they were back and forth. And finally they said, there's a new studio, big famous studio that really is passionate about this. And these guys wanted to be filmmakers too. And they wanted to kind of have their own successful careers. So they're thinking, big studio opportunity. And so they said, we're going to go with this other studio. And I went into Amanda in the kitchen and I said, it's over. They said no. And we were sad and we might have cried. We were just upset. I was a little annoyed. I go back into my office in my home and I sit down at the computer and ping, pray for pageant, pops up right on my computer.
Wow.
And I grabbed the mouse and I moved the cursor up to the delete button. And I said, I can't do this anymore. I can't keep praying. I can't keep getting my hopes up. And I went to delete it. And one of the few times in my life where I've really felt God speak to me, I just felt this, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't delete that. And so I reluctantly moved the cursor away and I was like, okay, God, I'll pray and please let your will be done. And if you want, please let me make this movie.
Blah,
But
blah.
yeah, I was like, it was very much not one of the more worshipful Psalms that I was drawing from. It was David in the cave, for sure.
The obedient prayer.
Yeah, exactly. And so then Amanda walks in and she says, I was just praying and kind of crying out to God a little bit. And I felt like God was putting on my heart, this isn't over. I just don't think this is over. And I'm like, crap. Sorry if I'm not supposed to say that on a Luskos
No,
podcast.
we endorse that word here.
Yeah.
Herdman approved.
Yes, good. And so I was like, I don't want to get my hopes up again, but okay, so let's not give up on this. And a few years ago, I did my annual reach out. I texted the gentleman, Darren, and I said, hey, just checking in on pageant. And he goes, hey, give me a call. And I'm like, ooh. So I call him and he says, this is funny timing because just 1 week ago, the studio forgot to renew the rights. And we have them back. And we've been a little frustrated. And just a couple of days ago, my mom reached out to me and she said, have you heard of this show called The Chosen? And I said, oh, that's funny, Mom. The creator of The Chosen is constantly bugging me to do this movie.
Won't leave me alone.
Yeah.
20 years.
And his mom says, are you crazy? You better give him the rights to this movie. He's the only one who can do it. What's wrong with you? Give him the rights. And he's like, well, I have to listen to my mom. So I watched the show and it's beautiful and I love it. And let's talk. And so just the fact, Levi, that we're talking to you guys right now as being able to say that a movie called The Best Christmas Pageant Ever is out in theaters and we made it, is in and of itself. I don't know. I wouldn't use the word dream. What's the term?
Come true.
Dream fulfilled. Dream realized. But it's a calling fulfilled. I really believe that God had this for us, and that if I would have made it 10 years ago, it would not be the movie that it is today. If I hadn't done The Chosen, I wouldn't have had the quote unquote clout to make the movie that I wanted to make in the way that I wanted.
Or the pastor. Studio. You wouldn't have had Gaius. Yeah.
Yeah. Gaius, who played Kirk Wooler, who played the pastor in it, but did a beautiful job. But again, the studio, Lionsgate, I give them credit for believing in me and for allowing me to make the movie that I wanted to make and keeping in and in fact expanding upon the Jesus story from the book and putting even more of a spotlight on it. And so it really is a calling fulfilled and a testament to when God has called you to something. And you do know that. Again, it sometimes takes time. And sometimes it's not always God calling you to something. Sometimes it is your own fleshly desires. But this was truly a calling fulfilled. And he had us at the edge of the Red Sea, camped out for a long time. But the waters finally parted and we knew it was God doing it.
Wow.
Jeez.
Thank you for sharing that. Oh my gosh.
What an illustration of a long obedience in the same direction that is, first of all.
That was 20 years.
And the parable Jesus said about prayer, the knocking on the door.
Yeah.
You bugged God with your prayers long enough, but even that you're seeing the other side of it, that it wasn't a no, it was a wait. And you're not ready yet.
Yeah. And I will say, I feel like it also had to do with the process of us. We were very slow to learn surrender, I would say. I would say the 20 years was a real reflection of our process of more and more and more learning to have open hands with this stuff. And I think some of the stuff that Dallas had been through and some of the real disappointments and the outright failure of one of his films, it changed the way we held on to this thing. And I really genuinely felt like I was surrendering through tears numerous times and then re-surrendering, because that's what we mostly have to do. We have to surrender it and then we take it back and then we have to surrender it again. And I feel like the Lord took us through that so that when we finally got to make it, we really were holding it differently. I don't know how to describe that. It was really like a different way that we were stewarding it than it would have been 20 years ago. It was really different. So it just, our process that he needed to take us through, I think, in order to entrust us with this really sweet story.
Wow.
Okay, well, that is all phenomenal. Everyone needs to go see the best Christmas pageant ever.
Every single
it'll
one
change
of
if you're a pastor. It'll challenge church and how you approach people who are not initiated. Your church not becoming a country club.
If you're a leader in the church,
a mission field. Always looking at it that way. I think that's one of the things I love so much about it. But I do want to, because we don't have a lot of time left, get to some of these amazing announcements. I got my 5 and 2 Studios hat here, which is incredible. You basically rolled out the Chosen multiverse at Chosen Con this year. Literally, because you have this amazing show, The Chosen, but you've announced, if I can say this correctly, you're going to have other shows introduced, whether Joseph or Moses or the Book of Acts or these different shows, different directors, some that you'll do, some that other directors will do, but you guys will remain the clearinghouse for the doctrinal fidelity and DNA culturally of the brand. But literally, it's like the MCU, but for the Bible. I mean, is that fair to say?
Yes. 5 and 2 Studios is our official new name. Obviously rooted in a story I've shared with you, I think even on this podcast, of how our lives were changed when we realized for the first time, even though it's not that revolutionary of a thought, but it took me a long time to get it, that it's not our job to feed the 5,000, it's only to provide the loaves and fish. And so that's one of the things Amanda was referencing that God had to take us through, is to not feel defined by the success of the world, but to focus on the 5 loaves and 2 fish that you can make. You hand them over to God. If he deems them worthy of acceptance, the transaction is over. And so those are the numbers we care about most, and that's why it's the name of our studio.
Love it.
And so we did announce at Chosen Con publicly that the next thing I want to do after the mothership show, the one that I want to be the showrunner for, is Moses, and the 3-season show covering the story of Moses and the Exodus, and then follow that up with what we're currently entitling The Way of the Chosen, because, as you know, the early church was referred to their movement as the Way.
Yeah.
And so I know some people have been like, well, why aren't you doing the Book of Acts right after the mothership show? Like, we don't want to wait to see more of the story. And I'm like, just please, we need a break.
Yeah, of course.
Wait a minute.
Give us a hot minute.
Yes.
Yeah, but also, biblically speaking, I do believe that understanding the story of Moses actually helps you better understand the story of Jesus.
Absolutely.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
And so I think it was good for us we want to go back for a moment, kind of help you root you in the foundations of the faith, see that Moses was the forebearer of the Messiah. And I think that will help make The Way of the Chosen, the Book of Acts, even more impactful and powerful. And it also, we're coming into season 5. And in season 5, I realized this while we were portraying the Last Supper, a Passover Seder, they're essentially honoring the Moses story. There's even a moment in a Passover Seder that all Jews do, that they would have done at the Last Supper, where they dip their fingers into the wine and 10 times go through the 10 plagues.
And go look for Elijah, see if he's outside and all that stuff. Yeah.
And so we're like, we need to take a moment and go back and let's explore and portray the roots of our faith, and in a way that does what The Chosen, I think, does best, and what I think we can uniquely do that no one else can. And other people do things better than we do. So we're not saying this arrogantly. It's just we have a certain approach that we take that we think is unique, but to apply that to the story of Moses and to not treat it like just a big epic story of waves parting and plagues coming and promised lands arriving. It's ultimately about also an underqualified man and an underqualified family, and that is tasked with leading the greatest family in history. And we want to explore the humanity of that and what it's like to truly walk with God when you are as broken and humbled and unqualified as Moses was. And so we want to explore that. And so that's one of the things. And we're also developing a Joseph miniseries right now. In fact, I just had a meeting with the head writer on that project that we're helping steer, a Joseph miniseries, and it's going to be really, really cool.
Not to mention the Chosen animated series.
Yeah, the Chosen Adventures.
The Bear Grylls spinoff. I mean, it's just literally, it's unbelievable. All the different things.
I have been in the wild with Bear Grylls.
He's just now back.
Yeah, it's called Chosen in the Wild. And 5 of our actors, Jonathan Rumi and Luke Dimian, Noah James, Liz Tabish, and Paris Patel, all individually went out into the wild with Bear, and then I went into the wild with Bear. And it was
and you'll never be the same.
Yeah, it was a unique experience. It was actually really beautiful. And he's a believer and an extraordinary. He's not just an outdoorsman who does a great show, but he really does explore. We explore how being out in the wild can draw you closer to Christ. And so it was a really, really cool experience. We got a lot going on.
Yes.
And we're going to also have some announcements soon about some of one of the people we're partnering with to bring this to the world beyond just the Chosen app and whatnot. So it's a lot of cool things happening. And I'm just telling you, Levi, to be in a situation where some of the biggest media companies in the world are intentionally and aggressively telling you that they want to put gasoline on a fire of biblical stories and getting them out to the world while we maintain 100% of the control of the content is unprecedented and truly a God moment right now.
Yeah. Well,
did you have something you wanted to say?
I just wanted to end by saying thank you. I honestly just feel so grateful that we get to know you both, and we're so proud of you. And we're just like, we feel like we're in your corner in the ring, just like, you got this. This is amazing. We're so grateful for you guys. And we just pray that in the midst of all the crazy and the busy and the beautiful and the awesome and the hard, that God's grace would just pour over you and fill you and overwhelm you, and that everything that God has called you to, is calling you to, will call you to, will just flourish and change the world. And we're just so grateful for you guys.
Oh, that means everything.
We feel very much our friendship with you is so refueling for us. I feel like God's placed a few people in our life that just very uniquely speak in or encourage or exhort or whatever it is at the moment. We feel like you guys are such a blessing to us.
I do have one more question. Sorry, what were we going to say, Dallas?
Just very quickly, yeah, Levi, and we've not only partnered together in many ways, but you wrote the foreword for our 3rd devotional book, our season 3 devotional book, which when we read it, we had tears streaming down our face. So anyway, it's been a great blessing. But sorry, continue.
Well, I was just going to, I remember I texted you, I wanted to at least get to ask this question. I know with the Come and See Foundation, you've tracked a lot of some of the numbers, because we're in a season in our church where we're talking about what if we all offer up our 5 and 2 loaves individually to see the gospel go out, make our churches places where the herdmans are welcome, and just what God can do. And specifically with the Chosen, like I know, for example, Jennie's sister-in-law works for a nonprofit that puts the Bible in apps into prisons. And they have the Pando app with 500,000, I think almost 500,000, maybe it's 250,000 devices right now. And she told me the number one thing streamed on those apps is The Chosen. Yes. And I know that's just one small iteration. Every time I fly, I walk up and down the plane to go to the restroom or whatever, I always see headrests that have The Chosen on.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if you have any anecdotal number of how many people have been exposed to Jesus through The Chosen in the years you've been putting the show out there.
Yeah, as of right now, we have a lot of third-party analysts who look at this because it's not always easy to track because it is in places like prisons. Prisons have been some of the most fertile ground for life change through this show. It's been extraordinary. But the safe, likely estimate is somewhere around 250 million people currently around the world. The show's been translated and dubbed into over 50 languages so far. The intention is 600 languages. But yeah, we're a little bit around a little bit over 250 million at this moment.
God, praise God.
So there's this little thing called the Great Commission, and y'all are
doing it.
So praise God for that.
We love you.
We could talk for 10 more hours.
Yes.
I wish we didn't even get to talk to all the things I want to, because I want to talk about Hanukkah. I want to talk about your depiction of Antiochus Epiphanes.
Oh my gosh, next time.
Our kids sing that song, but we will let you go on to the things you're doing with our love. And congratulations on the best Christmas pageant ever. Everyone opportunities to go see it in the theater, support it, sneak in your anchovies and your sardines, and put them on your popcorn for Dallas in honor.
Your popcorn.
We love you guys.
We love you.
Yeah, love you. Talk soon.
Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to swing by levilusko.com and jennielusko.com to see what's going on in our world.
And make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. And in the meantime, we would love to connect with you on social media.
Jennie and Levi Lusko out.
Access more